Hello, everyone in the Europass Teacher Academy community. My name is Susan Galliano, and welcome back for another episode of Europass Teacher Talks. And today we are going to have a very special guest who brings a lot of experience in embodied learning and drama in education. And before we invite her on stage, I would just like to thank everyone for being here and ask you to please send a little love our way and hit the subscribe button and like our video. And please feel free to interact. There'll be lots of different activities to do together. And we would love to have some of your reactions, what you've tried in the classroom, what you have found it works, and also just, giving us some feedback about Miriam's great experience. So I am now going to invite her on stage. Hello, Miriam.
Hi, Susan. Thanks for having me. Hi, everybody watching,
Thank you
whenever
so
and
much.
wherever you might be watching.
Yes. As you know, we have quite a vast audience, lots of teachers from within the Erasmus community, but also in North America, South America, Africa, and Asia. And so we're very honored to have such a diverse audience. And I think a lot of the things that we're going to talk about today can work across all age groups and cultures, especially because your original background in teaching is in teaching English, which it seems like everybody is stuck doing, except for us in the English-speaking world. And so thank you for being with us. And Miriam, you are at the Europass Teacher Academy in Dublin.
Yes.
And you are heading up courses, lots of things about social and emotional learning, about drama in education. And something that really caught my eye is when you talk about embodied learning. So what do you think would be important for people to know about you in our talk today?
Well, I call myself an embodied language facilitator, which is a fancy way of saying that I use drama to teach English as a second language, because I find that when you work through the body, you help people to have a physical and emotional connection to language. So a lot of learners get stuck where they know the rules, they know the vocabulary, but they sound very false, very stilted. They can't be funny, they can't be clever. So playing with drama can loosen that up a little bit. Particularly with grammar, my passion is teaching grammar through the body to make abstract concepts more concrete, and then using improvisation and playfulness to be present in the language, or whatever it is you happen to be teaching. A lot of my teachers are teaching science, history, geography, not just languages, but languages is kind of a logical place to start with drama.
Fascinating. Teaching grammar through the body. Would you like to tell us a little more about that? Because, actually, as a matter of fact, Miriam, let's ask the people who are watching. I assume that everyone watching right now has taken foreign language of some sort. And I wanted to ask people, would you say, just write in the comments, were your overall experiences with foreign language learning? Was it something that you remember fondly? Is it something that you say, never again? It left a bad taste in my mouth. Tell us, was it a good experience? Was it a negative experience? If it was a good experience, tell us why. What do you remember about it? And if it wasn't such a good experience, why? What is it that seemed to be the barrier between you and better learning? And so as people are thinking about what their experiences were growing up, I mean, I can tell you, Miriam, I had a very negative experience learning French as a child. And it was something that I just, for whatever reason, probably because in the United States, we don't learn enough about our own grammar. So then when you are trying to learn grammar in a second language, you don't have something to hold on to. But The thing that I remember the most and still to remember to this day was hearing the pre-recorded voices of people speaking French in this very sing-song way. And I still remember learning them and repeating them. And those were the moments that clicked with me the most. And it had nothing really to do with the teacher, but it was something that felt more, I don't know, like musical, which of course
Mm.
was one of my important, I would say, like that was something that always stimulated me. And so, in thinking about this embodied learning, which, as you said, it kind of can start. It started in your experience with foreign language learning, but can be extended to all different subjects. What do you think teachers need to understand about that? About what embodied learning is?
Well, starting with my own experience of delving into it, when I first started to research it, it was for my master's thesis to figure out how to embody grammar. And I had quite a narrow view of what embodiment meant. I really saw it as just helping the kinesthetic learners, bringing more physicality into learning. But what was really interesting was the more I researched it, the more the feedback came from my learners that yes, the physical side is important, but when we learn best is when our emotions are engaged while being physical and mentally engaged together. So embodiment basically just means your brain, your body, and your emotions are working in a connected way. Like when you do yoga or martial arts, or if you play an instrument, your brain, your body, and your emotions are working fluidly for one goal. And often when we teach a second language, we forget to include that. So when you learn your first language, it's all physical. You know, you're smelling, you're sticking things in your mouth, like, what does this do? What is it? But then you come to a second language and it's very abstract. We start with the reading and the writing, which is really the final part of language, not the first part. So embodied language learning or embodied learning, sorry, can happen in any subject. I have teachers who work in science and in mathematics, and they're bringing the body and the emotions into exploring, theorems or scientific experiments. So if I say language a lot, apologies, that's my area, but it's not the only area.
That's fascinating. I mean, are these things with the teachers that come to your courses, is there, not to put you on the spot, but is there some type of an example that came up that was that seemed like it was quite a stretch, it was in a subject that it wouldn't be necessarily the first thing you think of?
Yeah, I had a mathematics teacher when we were doing an improvisation session, and it was a simple activity where you have to introduce somebody as your friend. And I gave the example, and then weeks later, she wrote back to me to say she had used it with her preschool class to look at shapes. So her children were in role as different shapes. One was a cube, one was a pyramid, and one little girl was a sphere. And this particular child, she said, was very shy, very quiet. But when the others were talking about, I have 5 sides and I have so many corners, and she said, well, because I'm a sphere, I'm the only one of you who can roll around the classroom.
Oh, how cute.
And it was just such a beautiful example of one very open activity being used in a specific subject to help her understand. Like, she was fully engaged in being a sphere, and the one thing she could do that the others couldn't do. And it's a different way to understand rather than just drawing a flat shape. The teacher then got them to get up and make the shapes with their bodies and hold real shapes and connect it all together. But speaking as the sphere just really gave her a sense of, yeah, I can do something you guys can't
What
do.
does it feel like to be a
Yeah,
sphere, and what would it yes, and what would it feel like to roll around the room and
yeah.
to not have any corners? Very interesting. Thank you for that. And so, I know that something that can be very useful in, for example, in getting your students ready, because when you talk about using drama and improv
Mm.
in education, if I know that you have some tricks and tips and things that you like to use, even to kind of get your learners ready.
Mm.
Um, you can just take the floor from here. I mean, would you like to tell us a bit about why use drama in education, or shall we just have an experience? You lead us. Mhm.
Well, let's do a little warm up. and anyone listening along, you're welcome to try this as well. It's something I do with my students to help them be present in the lesson, but also to begin being creative in a very safe way. So we're still sitting down, we're just at our desks, and we're just going to breathe, but we're going to breathe in different ways. So you can do all of these activities as one thing, or you could take a specific example and just do that. But Susan and I will have a go.
Great. And anyone who's watching, please feel free to try it out.
So feet on the floor, back nice and straight, nice relaxed belly. And you don't have to copy what I do. You can do your own thing, but we're keeping our eyes open. And we're going to breathe as if we're smelling the most beautiful flowers you've ever smelled. Breathing out as if you're 5 years old and you're blowing out all of the candles on your birthday cake. Breathing in as if you're standing on the cliffs of Moher, breathing the beautiful Irish air. And finally, imagine that you are a huge, fabulous golden dragon. Everything that's annoyed you this week is sitting right in front of you. So emails, traffic, irritating students or parents, whatever it may be. We love our students and parents. They never irritate us. Whatever's been driving you crazy is sitting in front of you. And when you breathe out, you're going to set it on fire.
Oh, boy.
So you're ready. Full fire breathing dragon mode. So
yes,
it's very simple, but there's a couple of important points. The breath is a great activator. So the dragon one can really bring you energy and awaken you up. But it can also be a way to relax and calm the senses. So just smelling the flowers, imagine you're getting into a hot bath. So you can bring the energy up, you can bring the energy down. But it's also an interesting exercise if you have a group of students who think that they're not creative. Sometimes I do this and I say, hands up, who's a creative person? And a few brave souls will raise their hands and most people won't. And then we do this activity and I ask it again. And a few more people will smile and put their hands up. And then I always just say, the good news is creativity is not a personality trait. It's a skill. You can develop it just by breathing. You can be on the cliffs of Moher. You can be 5 years old. You can be a dragon. It's a skill that we can practice and hone and get better at. But yeah, it's a nice little warm up to start the day in a playful way.
Yes, exactly. I was actually going to ask, for those of you watching, how, do you use breathing activities in your classroom? And if you do, what have you tried? Because there are lots of teachers who feel a bit reluctant, even when they think of breathing activities, they're thinking of something that's much more connected to mindfulness or something a bit more, we might even say grown up. And it might seem out of place in the beginning of a history lesson. But if it's a history lesson where you're going to want them to role play some moment in history, it sounds like something like this is just going to be that first little step in helping them realize that something different is going to happen in this classroom.
And you can also link it to whatever subject you're doing. So, you could say, breathe in as if you're sitting under the hot Egyptian sun, or breathe in as if you're smelling the Roman canals. You can link it into your topic so that it doesn't feel like an isolated, weird thing that you do at the start. I'm a big fan of integrating. There should always be a purpose for the activity, not just filling time,
Yes, absolutely. And thank you for that. And so, what do you think when we talk about like drama in education? What does that mean? Because I think that makes a lot of teachers a bit nervous. They say, "I'm not an actress. That is not my thing." Yes, that's fine when you're in the lower grades, when you're working with the smaller children, but I have the big exam at the end of the year and the students have to pass it. And so we just don't have time.
Yeah, I think there's a few misconceptions about what it means, and often based in kind of fear. Usually people think I either mean like a Shakespearean performance or we're all going to be standing pretending to be trees.
Right.
I'm not an actress either. My background is drama and education as a methodology. So to get around the sort of associations people have with the words drama and theater, often with my students, I just say activity or I say exercise. Today we're going to do a pronunciation activity that will, help you master the ed ending, and it's drama. Really, when I talk about drama, I just mean using the body and the voice to connect emotionally and physically in a playful way with whatever the subject is. So we use some theater techniques, we use improvisation games, but the point is the process of what you're doing. There's no performance, there's no audience, and there can be if you want to be, but that's not the main goal. The main goal is basically just playing like we let children do. We sort of act as if the need for play stops once you reach a certain age or a certain height. And drama is play for grown-ups. But yeah, for anyone who thinks that their students might be skeptical or suspicious of the fun, I just use the words activity, exercise, and then I do the drama. I'm like a drama ninja, it's like stealth drama.
Yes,
I
but
tell them at the end.
you sneak it in there. You're not going to make a
Yeah.
big announcement and say, "Okay, everyone, we're going to do an improvisation activity that," and then immediately they start thinking of how they can sabotage it.
Yeah, because people have those associations. You hear improvisation and you think comedy, SNL, TV, I have to be funny, I have to be clever. And I always say, no, you don't have to be funny, you don't have to be clever. You just have to try something. Take the risk, put yourself out there. Like improvisation is the death of perfectionism. It's a really good tool to get out of your head and into your body. But if you say the word, sometimes people get into that panic mode. The one thing I'll say is I do say at the end, because I think it's important to acknowledge the power of drama. I tell people at the end, actually, that was a drama activity. Would you like to do more drama? This is what I mean when I say drama. I don't mean you have to hold a skull and think about life. You're just being present in what you do to connect your body, your brain, and your emotions in the learning process.
Lovely. And last week, 2 weeks ago, when I had talked about Peter Gray from Boston College and talking about in play in education, and him talking about how that is our play is a child's work, and not only the child. And so I'm excited to think about more ways. You talked about adding a way of using a bit of improv in learning how to use ed on the end in the simple past or in the past participles.
Yeah. Well, we could model that now, actually, if you
Sure,
like.
I would love it.
Because there are three endings, which always throws people who are learning the language. There's three different sounds, so it's the same ed, but the sound will change depending on the last sound that was voiced or not voiced. So what I do is we make a drum kit. So the sounds that have no voice, like kiss or push or laugh, it sounds like a T. So that's your symbol. Your t, 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 kissed, laughed, splashed. You get that nice t, t, t sound. So that's your symbol. And then the sounds that have a soft D. So like, I can give an example now.
Loved.
Thank you. Yeah. So loved, that's our, you can't see, but that's our sort of kick drum. So I'm stamping. So loved, lived, just stamping with the foot. And then if the word ends in a T or a D, and this is the bit that always throws students, if it's like want or wait, you have to make it a syllable. So wanted, waited, it's an id sound. So that's our two: wanted, waited, founded. So everybody gets a word, but the words are different. And so if I have kissed, I'm going to be doing kissed, kissed, kissed. And then if you have splashed, you're doing splashed, splashed, splashed. But we have to find our section of the drum kit and stand together. So there's a lot of confusion because what happens is people look at the symbol of the letter instead of hearing the sound. So this is
Amazing. You make me want to go back and teach English again.
Fantastic. Yeah, that's my goal. Make it fun. And that I really like that activity because you're integrating pronunciation and grammar, like we teach with the course books, everything is so separate, and that's not how language works. So this is a really playful, fun, silly way. So they make the parts of the drum kit, and then they get a bunch of the words and they have to tell a story, and then the audience has to do the drum kit in response to the words. So the audience, if you're using performance in drama in the classroom, your audience should always have a job. They should never be passive. So this is a chance to get them listening, recording, catching things like how many symbol words did you hear? How many ED words did you hear? And it becomes really, really fun. But the thing is, the process is quite messy. So they're exploring, they're experimenting, and you need to give time for them to be in the wrong area, but they can self-correct. They can see I'm doing this and everyone around me is doing this. I'm in the wrong.
Yes. Exactly. And there's no shame in that. It's just like, we're doing something different.
Yeah,
Thank
exactly.
you for that. That was a great little bonus tip. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd forgotten all about that activity until you.
Brilliant. And also, I know that another thing that you have worked on very actively in your an Erasmus project is this idea of laugh out loud. Projects that are incorporating more humor in the classroom.
Yeah, that was a really, really fun project that we did with Europass with several of the centres. There's actually lots of free resources available online for teachers who are interested in it. And maybe we can share the link at a later date. But yeah, there was sort of two sides to it. So the first half was, as a teacher, how you can present yourself in a way that's more engaging, more interesting, more dynamic, but still authentic. So if you're a calm, chill person, you don't need to come in with, finger guns and rah, rah, rah. But how do you bring your natural sense of humor in to help students relax and feel connected? And then the other side, which was where I was most excited, was how we use humor and comedy to help natural connection emerge, because the science is really exciting. Like when we laugh together, so not at someone, but when we laugh together in a shared moment, it reduces cortisol, so it reduces the stress hormone, and it increases endorphins. So we feel less stressed and more connected and more happy, which is the goal in every classroom, right? You want your students to feel like they belong. You want them to be interested in what's happening. And for me, the most interesting part of that was that when we feel more connected and less stressed, we take more risks, we try new things, and we're less worried about being perfect. And any teacher knows the biggest drawback to a student's progress is their own fear of failure. So if you can make failure something that's playful and silly and just part of what happens, we all fail, and when we do, we can laugh about it and move on and laugh together, not in a shaming way. You've won such a huge battle there. What the student has won the battle, with their own need for perfection.
And would you recommend that, like, the teachers, because oftentimes teachers, they might come up with an activity, but the feeling is like, okay, now kids, you do it. And the teacher is kind of back there looking at them.
When I teach my courses, everyone tries everything, because if you don't know how it feels, you only know how it looks. You can't understand the student's experience. So you won't understand why someone might be reluctant or how much fun it is. A lot of the time we can be a bit hypocritical. We expect our students to do things we wouldn't want to do ourselves. And then we're annoyed that they don't want to do the nice activity. When we don't even want to stand up and move around on a course, we're like, oh, here we go. This is the movement part. So it's really important to know how it feels, because it's an inner experience. What you're seeing is not going to be what they're experiencing. And then you can change it. Like I always say, I'm giving an example, but you should be adapting and changing it for your students. It's not going to be the same with every group. It's not going to be the same on different days. People come in with different energies. So our own perfectionism as teachers gets challenged here, where we have to stop and go, okay, it didn't work. Why did it not work? It's not necessarily something I did. It might just be the environment. We need to be present if we're trying to use drama. We need to be present in the classroom to see what's happening. So we can calibrate what activities we share and not just do it because we love it ourselves.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm wondering if any of the educators who might be watching us today, if they use little bits and pieces of drama in their classrooms. I would be very curious to know how it's used, because I think some of the secondary teachers are onto something when they say that they feel like primary school teachers have just more room to do this. And it's hard for a secondary teacher who is perhaps coming from a very teacher-centered, lecture-based model to imagine how they can incorporate it. So I would be curious to know, if any of you are using it and what you have found to be useful. And so, I mean, give us, you are just full of ideas. Is there anything that you would like I'm game.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned secondary teachers, because I have an activity that the secondary teachers always love, because one of their challenges is they don't have the students all day. So the students are coming into their room from another class and they only have maybe 45 minutes to very quickly get them into their subject. So there's a very fun game called Tell Me About, which Susan and I can do now if you want, Susan.
Okay, I'll do my best.
So the point of this game is spontaneity, confidence, fluency, stream of consciousness. So, Susan, are you happy if I give you a topic?
I'll try. Yes.
I'm going to give Susan a random topic, like tell me about bananas, and she can say whatever she likes about the topic. But as soon as she says another word that's interesting, so if she says, oh, bananas are a fruit, they're yellow, they grow on trees, I can say, tell me about trees. And then we switch to another topic.
Okay.
But it's always important in drama to have a safety net so people can participate at their own level. So at any point, Susan, if I say something to you and you don't know what to say, you can say, no, Miriam, you tell me about trees, and it switches back.
Oh, great. Okay.
The other thing is we're not in competition, so we want to help each other. So I'm not going to choose a word like tell me about the or tell me about it. I'm going to try and choose the nice, juicy, interesting words, which means you're also going to try and pick juicy, interesting words and not just get stuck in a loop of the same thing. Susan, tell me about Italian food.
There's lots of tomatoes in Italian cuisine. We eat a lot of pasta. I would say that it's one of the most popular cuisines in the world.
Tell me about the world.
Oh, the world. Well, it's a very interesting place. We have oceans, and then we have land, and things change over time. And the land used to actually all be together in one big mass, if you can believe that, called Pangea. And then over time, things moved, and people move, and they
tell me about people.
People, I love people. People are very interesting characters.
Tell me about interesting characters.
Oh my goodness. No, Miriam, you tell me about an interesting character.
Well, there are many interesting characters in literature, and so on and so forth.
Very nice.
Thank you, Susan.
I love that. And would you recommend that, like, maybe two students do this in front of the classroom? Would you recommend putting them in all in different pairs and they just kind of do it where the teacher is not necessarily hearing what they're doing?
Thank you. That is a really good point. So I will model this with a volunteer just to show how it works, especially the no, you tell me, the fact that you can pass it back, but there is no need for them to perform it. This is about the process. So they're all working in pairs, which means you as the teacher are free to go around and observe and take notes and see who needs help and see who's struggling. The joy of drama is it's a really great way for you to assess your learners. They're working together. You're free to roam around and see what's happening, to make notes of any, if you want to do error correction, to make some notes, correct together, and then go again and fix it. One thing I'll say is for a language teacher, this is a really important game to get them back into the language you're teaching. The fancy term is activate the schemata. But basically, if they've spent all day in Italian and they're coming to you for English, this is a
Yes.
little game they can do in English just to wake up that center of the brain. But likewise, if you're teaching history or geography, you could start with tell me about ancient Egypt, tell me about Pythagoras' theorem, tell me about climate change. And they might veer off topic, but you could make it part of the game that they have to try and choose the words that are connected. They have to try and stay on topic as they get more accomplished at it and they feel more confident. It's a really fun, playful game, but there's a lot of things happening under the surface. And you don't need props, you don't need materials, you don't need a lot of time, and you can link it to your subject.
Excellent. Great tip. I'm going to try that immediately. And things that so would you consider this to be still sort of an introductory kind of activity before you would kind of go more deeply into these, or do you mostly focus on activities that are going to warm up the crowd for what's going to come next academically?
For myself, because I'm used to using drama, it's sort of organic and natural for me to weave it in all parts of my lesson. But when I work with teachers, this is one of the first activities I do to sort of demonstrate that it's quite safe, it's not scary. The principles of drama are all there. It's people working together, collaborating, not competing. And the safety net is a really important part. If we're using drama as a methodology, we have to respect the fact that our students have come to us for English, for history, for maths. They're not expecting drama. So you need to weave it in gradually in a way that makes sense for the lesson. And you need to think about your own comfort zone, you know. We need to challenge ourselves, but in a way that's safe and scaffolded, where we and the students feel comfortable. We're out of our comfort zone a little bit, but not so much that we can't focus on the lesson. And if it doesn't work, you just go back to the drawing board and try it a different way on a different day.
Right, because if our body language is expressing a lot of distress and discomfort, and as they would say, a lot of cringe, then that's exactly what the students will pick up on. And so,
Yeah.
yes, the scaffolding is not just for the students, but it's for the teacher as well.
Yeah. And to find your own way of doing it that feels authentic. Like a lot of my drama teachers were very zen, very calm, very, chill. And I'm not very high energy. But when I started using drama, I was doing this weird fake like yoga teacher voice. It's like, okay, everybody, and now we're gonna do, and it just wasn't me. And it was only when I started to embrace improvisation and movement and go, okay, yeah, I am more high energy. Yes, calm is good, but it has to be a real thing. If you're coming in and being really fake and awkward, they're not gonna relax.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. They sniff us out.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then
Well,
the flip side of that is also, sorry for that, if we can admit to our students and be authentic and say, like, there's times I'll say, guys, I'm trying something new. I haven't done this before, so it mightn't work, but do you want to give it a go? If we can admit imperfection ourselves and model that in a very real way, it really changes the dynamic. I find a lot of teachers, myself included, we talk a lot to students about it's okay to make mistakes, embrace failure, just try. And then the second we make a mistake, the world ends, and they see it. So if we can come in and be like, oh, sorry guys, that didn't really work. Let's think about why it didn't work. How could we try it again? And really model that comfort with making a mistake. It's amazing the difference it makes in the dynamic of trust and respect and connection. You're not losing authority. You actually end up just gaining respect and trust if you can say to them, that didn't really work, did it? Let's, go back to the drawing board.
Exactly. Just that being human, but it's not like we're asking them for help. It's not like we're showing them our weak side. We're saying, so we tried this thing. What worked? What didn't? What could we do differently? And we make it a bit more impersonal. Not so much like that it's my fault or that I had a bad idea. I think almost approaching it in a little more of a scientific manner. So what, we tried an experiment.
Yeah, and it's a balance between exactly objectivity and vulnerability. Like the activity didn't work. Why do we think it didn't work? No one's at fault. The students aren't at fault. The teacher's not at fault. But let's not pretend it did. Like some of my best sessions have been halfway through something where I've gone, guys, this isn't really working, is it? And they all start to laugh in relief, like, oh, thank goodness we can stop. And it's like, well, how could we make it work better? That you're just bridging the gap a little bit, and being
because
human.
there are a lot of teachers that in that moment of embarrassment, they might, without even realizing it, kind of dump it on the students.
Yeah.
I try and do nice things, and I worked so hard on this, and okay, that means that the next time I'm just gonna lecture and you're gonna take notes. And I know that maybe it's not nice to say that, but I think that in that moment of a little bit of panic, that it can happen. And instead, just being able to say, okay, so this was something we tried, and what happened? So you have any other goodies? Oh no, tell me, you were going to say something.
No, I was just going to say that that's such an important point, because the two things I hear the most with teachers learning to use drama are, that's okay for you, but I can't do that. And that won't work with my students. And then I say, well, how can we make it work? How could you be comfortable doing it? Because I am not you, and this room is not your classroom. What do we need to change? And a lot of the problem comes from people jumping in too far ahead of where the students are comfortable or where they themselves are comfortable. And then it's either, oh, I knew it wouldn't work with those students, or I'm a failure. I can't do drama. And it's a process, it's a process. I wasn't comfortable the first time I did drama. I was so awkward, especially using the voice. I was so uncomfortable. I felt weird. So I just didn't do it. I played with improvisation and the things I did feel comfortable with. And now I work with voice and I work with breath. But it took me a while to get to a place where I didn't feel like a fraud. So
that's so important for teachers to know and to be reassured about.
Yeah, pace yourself.
Yes. And you had also talked a bit about another project that you had learned a lot from, and I think that also kind of segues into other activities that you would like to show us. You had mentioned something, and I would love to hear more about it, because I'm going to pronounce the name of the project wrong.
The Sorgente project. Yeah, the Sorgente project I was so lucky to be a part of. It was a research project through Trinity University here in Dublin with Dr. Erica Piazzoli, my friend and colleague. And we were working with refugee and migrant learners of English to teach them English through the arts, to see the impact it had on belonging. So drama, dance, visual art, music, how does it affect your sense of belonging to the class, to the language, and to the culture if you're learning language in those ways? It did happen in the middle of, the tail end of COVID. So we had the extra joy of teaching pronunciation with face masks on.
Wow.
But actually what was really fascinating was it just emphasized how important drama is. So if you're trying to read someone's face and half their face is covered, what else are you reading? So we ended up focusing a lot on tone of voice, on posture, on body language. And there was one moment where one of the teenage girls, she had a burqa and she had a face mask. So all you could really see was this part of her face. And they were trying to read her emotions. And another student said, oh, yes, she is anger. I see her eyebrow is anger, because she was doing this. So with just this part of the body, she was able to express her feelings. And the point was that the more we helped students to become aware of that range, the more they could read each other's language. Even if they didn't know the vocabulary, they weren't sure of the grammar rules, but they could read all of the subtext. They could read what was being said underneath the language, which I think we forget about sometimes in the classroom. And it's so important, the difference in, oh, I'm fine and I'm fine. There's a world of difference, even though the word is the same. So yeah.
Yes. And I think that you also had mentioned something about activities that you had learned in these. Would you like to? I'm game. Now I'm all warmed up.
Well, firstly, I'd just like to say that the order of these activities is also modeling the way I would integrate them in a classroom. So we started with nice, relaxed breathing. Everyone knows how to breathe. Tell me about's a little bit more challenging, but you're doing it in pairs. No one's watching you. This next one is a bit more juicy, if you're up for it, Susan.
I'm going to do it. Yes.
So it's called crap impressions. And the reason it's called crap impressions is it is supposed to be bad. We're not trying to be clever or funny. We're just trying to do something. So the way it works is one person starts off. So with students, I would usually start this in a circle if it's a small group, or let them do it in groups of 4 or 5. So I have to give you an impression that you've never heard before. So not a celebrity, and not like, oh, a dog barking or a fish swimming. We know what that looks like. But if I say to you, a potato dancing the hula, we don't know what that looks like. So whatever you do will be okay. So I'm going to throw you a very random impression.
Okay.
And then you're going to do like 3 seconds of something. The worse, the better. And I'm just going to clap. And as soon as I clap, you're finished. And then you get to throw me one.
Okay. All right.
Oh, sorry. An important point I forgot is the language here is very important. So I say, I hear you do a crap impression of something. And then Susan will confidently accept. So Susan will say, yes, I do. Because that little moment of fake confidence gives you a little extra boost of energy and gets you out of the panic mode. So yes, I do. And then you do something. So Susan, I hear you do a crap impression of a sad banana skateboarding.
Okay. All right, Miriam, I have one for you. Okay. I hear you do a I hear you do a crap impression of an astronaut brushing his teeth.
Yes, I do. And then you clap.
Yay! That's a good one. Give me one more because I didn't do the part about yes, I can.
Okay. I hear you do a crap impression of a giraffe playing the ukulele.
Yes, I do. I'm glad you asked.
Bravo!
Yay! Okay.
So the point of this game is just confident participation. It doesn't matter what it is. You're just jumping in straight away. So you're not overthinking. You're not planning in your head. It's quite challenging. So usually when I do this on the course, we do the hardest version first, and then we work backwards to make it easier. So we do this in a circle where people throw the impressions to each other. But again, you have a safety net. So you only give the impression to someone who raises their hand or puts their hand on their head or has some visual signal that they want to be asked. What's really interesting is when you give the choice to not participate, most people do participate because you're taking away the panic and the fear of, oh, I'll be asked and I don't know what to do. So I always say, if you want to be asked, put your hand on your head, or, do some kind of signal. So we do it as a relay. So everybody asks somebody and everyone does it. And the point is to keep it very short. So yay, it's over. We move on. No one's left being an astronaut for 20 minutes.
Right.
And usually what happens is when I say what was the hardest part of that, actually thinking of the impression can be harder than doing it. So I always ask the teachers, how could we do this with students instead? So you could link it in with whatever you're doing in the classroom. You could have vocabulary on the board. So you could have, adjective, noun, adverb, verb, a sad banana skateboarding slowly. You could have professions. So it can either be there on the board where the student has 100% free choice, or you could have little baskets and they pick a word out of the basket. But they've written them. They know what's gone in there, but there's a bit more randomness. The point is they get very, very good at this, and it just builds such a confidence in trusting yourself to do something, to commit to something. And then if it's terrible, so what? It was 3 seconds of your life and you're going to move on.
And how did you even get this idea?
So there's an amazing improvisation teacher called Liz Peters. Thank you for asking. In the middle of COVID and lockdown, I was just really feeling stuck myself. I was teaching online. I was trying to teach drama online. And I did her improvisation course over Zoom. And it was just a joy, like playing these games with complete strangers. She has an amazing book as well called Own It, which is about improvisation for your own life, for like life skills for educators, for learners, for everybody. So yeah, I recommend
And it's
Liz
called
Peters.
Own It. I will
Own
put
It.
it
Yeah.
as a banner.
So
Interesting.
yeah, and I experienced all of these activities as a learner in her class, just playing, but then was able to adapt them to my students. And I've used them in different ways. So I keep talking about adaptation, but as an example, Crap Impressions is a game I use in my one-to-one online classes with a lovely Brazilian businessman. So he loves the game Crap Impressions. So I just integrate it into whatever language he wants to work on. And there was one day he came into class very upset. And I was like, what's wrong? He's like, oh, I made a terrible mistake with my wife. His wife is Irish, he's Brazilian. And sometimes he has language issues. And I said, why? What happened? And he said, oh, she had a beautiful new dress on and I wanted to compliment her. I was like, what did you say? And he said, you look very thick today. I was like,
Oh no.
no. And I was like, what did you mean to say? And then he was, I think I meant to say like voluptuous, curvaceous. It's like, okay, we'll work on compliments. So we did Crap Impressions, but we went through the alphabet. So the little bit at the end where we go, yay, he had to say amazing, brilliant, clever, delightful. And we went all the way to, well, I think we got as far as X before.
Excellent.
The thing is, when you start to use these, at the beginning, you might have just one idea in your head of how it'll work. But the more people you meet and the more comfortable and flexible you become, the more new ideas open up. I would never have thought, yes, the best way to teach a Brazilian businessman compliments is Crap Impressions.
Exactly. But you got him, you kind of got him away from the part of his brain that was fretting, worrying,
Yes.
very much in the fear of making a mistake that can kind of paralyze you cognitively.
Yes,
And
exactly.
so you got around that obstacle by making him think of something totally different, and it kind of releases you cognitively to access that part.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah. And you're using a different part of the brain, but you're also engaging the body. And the more the body moves, the less we overthink, the more present we are. So that's the joy of it, that the more you do it, the more it works.
Absolutely. And listen, we have a couple more minutes. Can you do you have one more thing that we can do together?
My favorite, one of my favorite activities is TED Talks.
TED Talks.
Yes. So in the classroom, I would do this with 2 people standing as the speakers and then 3 people behind them to be their slides. It works really well online because we literally can use each other as a slide. So you can give me a random topic, a silly topic. It has to be something silly so there's no pressure on being clever. And then I'm just going to talk. And then as soon as I say the word slide, Susan's video will be off. As soon as she hears the word slide, Susan is going to appear. And then whatever she's doing, I have to make sense of it and connect it to what I'm talking about.
Okay. Okay, great.
Yeah. So we'll do maybe 3 slides just to see how it works.
Great. Okay. So okay, and do I have to give you the topic?
Yeah, just so it's genuinely random.
Okay. Let's see.
The sillier the better.
The sillier the better. So how frothy milk can stimulate your intelligence. I literally looked around my house and noticed the little.
Okay, challenge accepted.
I will go off stage for a second. Okay.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to today's TED Talk on why frothy milk can stimulate our intelligence. This is, of course, a very hot topic at the moment. There's a lot of scientific research into this area. And I think the most interesting findings are what is shown on my first slide. Of course, we know so many people are stressed and worried about lactose intolerance these days, and milk has just become a source of stress and worry. And that is not something that we want. You know, we want people to rediscover the joy of dairy, to reconnect with their love of lactose. And how are we going to do this? Well, in my next slide, you'll have a look and see the joy of discovery in that frothing the milk just brings a sense of playfulness back. You know, your cappuccino doesn't need to be a source of stress and indigestion. It can be a source of joy, of playfulness, and of course, creativity. For we know that with the froth, you can create beautiful designs, you can activate the artistic side of the brain, drawing with the froth of your cappuccino. But of course, no discovery is without potential challenges, as we can see in my final slide. The choice in every coffee shop, which milk to have. Am I going with soy? Am I going with oat?
I have no idea what mine looked like because I was trying not to look at myself. But first of all, I think for all of you watching, I think that Miriam deserves a great round of applause for really running with it. And what a great example of being able to improvise, be good on your feet, and also to use a certain kind of register, a certain kind of persuasive language. This is a real 4 C's kind of an activity: communication, creativity.
I love this activity so much. I would like to say the first time I did it, I was absolutely terrified. I put so much pressure on myself because I was in a Zoom class full of other people who knew I taught drama. So I felt like I have to be really good in everything I do. And it took me a couple of weeks to get over that and just have fun with it. It's a beautiful collaboration exercise because the slides have a lot of power, but they don't have to speak. You can always bring in speech. You could say, oh, it's a GIF, or it's, you know, it's a video clip if you want to challenge them. But the power of being nonverbal means they have a lot of freedom to play because they're not stressed. And then the person speaking, or in the classroom, 2 people speaking, so they're not so stressed, they have each other. You're just responding to what's happening. And there's moments of brilliance. Like what I like to do is we do that as a warm-up, but then they get to go away and practice and write a script. So really the only point that I made there that actually connected with the thing was, you know, you can draw art in the foam.
Exactly.
But you could build on that, you know. So you could take that and run with it as the meat of something more serious if you wanted to bring in reading and writing and listening and speaking as well as the improv. But it's nice to start with the playfulness because that's where the permission to fail, permission to be silly. You come up with these great moments completely accidentally.
Absolutely.
And the sillier the better. Thank you for that. Was such. I'm going to steal that title actually from my next class.
And Miriam, wow, this has been it's been stimulating and entertaining and inspiring. And how can people find you? What is it that you're teaching? What are you offering at Europass in Dublin? And yes, anything that you would like for our viewers to know how to get more about you.
So if you come to Dublin Europass, you will see me. Any of the drama courses, they're the ones I get to steal. So drama techniques for social skills, embodied language teaching, which is my baby, how to teach grammar, pronunciation, and intonation through the body, learn to teach any subject through drama. So how do you use drama to teach science, to teach history, the LOL course, learning out loud, comedy and humor. And then we also have teaching languages through stories, myths, and legends. There's a lot of drama on that one as well. But yeah, if you want to connect with me online, you can find me as at Embodied English on Instagram. If you're curious just about little things like, you know, the ED drum kit and stuff like that. And yeah, I'm always happy to chat with teachers who are excited, interested, or terrified by drama.
Yes, as a matter of fact, as we're about to sign off, anyone who's watching, which one of these activities are you going to try tomorrow? Breathing activities. We did the crap and
Tell me
prep
about.
and the tell me about, or the TED Talk, or all four. Which one convinced you the most, that gave you the courage to just say, I'm going to do it? Let us know in the comments. Hit that subscribe button. And thank you so much for being here. Thank you, Miriam, for sharing so much with us. And I know that I come away enriched, and I will look forward to just kind of following what it is that you're doing. I'm going to get right on your look for you on Instagram. And to everyone watching, thank you so much. I'll see you in 2 weeks for a live. And I hope everyone has a wonderful holiday. Thank you, Miriam.
Thank you so much for giving me the chance to be playful and silly in a purposeful way.
For me too. Thank you. Bye bye, everyone.
Bye. Thank you.